The Jedi Council refused to train Anakin Skywalker, citing his age and fear of his future. Qui-Gon Jinn defied them, intending to train the boy himself. But before he could, he was killed on Naboo by Darth Maul. What if, the moment the Council denied Anakin, Qui-Gon walked away from the Jedi Order entirely? And what if, far from the war and politics of Coruscant, Qui-Gon raised Anakin in complete devotion to the will of the Force, founding a new Jedi path unburdened by tradition? The council chamber doors closed behind him with finality. The hall outside was quiet. Sunlight spilled across the stone floor, but it felt cold. Qui-Gon walked with purpose. Obi-Wan caught up quickly, breath tight.
You refused the mission. You walked out on the council.
Qui-Gon didn't stop walking.
I listened to the Force.
You listened to yourself.
That made Qui-Gon stop. He turned, calm but resolute.
I know the difference.
Obi-Wan's eyes flickered. Hurt, anger, disbelief all pressed behind his voice.
You're abandoning everything. The code, the order, me.
I'm following the will of something greater.
Greater than the Jedi?
Yes.
Silence stretched between them. A few Jedi passed in the distance, unaware that something sacred was unraveling.
Over a boy? One the council said no to?
They didn't listen. He was brought to us by the Force itself.
Obi-Wan stepped forward, his voice lowered.
And if you're wrong?
Then I will answer for it.
Obi-Wan looked at him, not as a Padawan looks at a master, but as a son looks at a father walking away.
You told me the Order would never abandon me, that I was part of something greater.
You still are, but the Order has forgotten what that something is.
The pain broke through Obi-Wan's restraint.
Then go, chase your prophecy, raise your chosen one, but don't ask me to follow.
Qui-Gon nodded once, heavy, sorrowful, but unflinching. He turned and walked away. Back in the Jedi High Council, the chamber was quieter than usual. No debates, no lectures, just stillness, the kind that only comes after something irreversible. Mace Windu stood with his hands folded. His voice broke the silence.
He's gone.
He left the Order, walked out without a word.
Without purpose, he walks not. The boy, his reason it is.
Plo Koon shifted, his tone even.
We denied the training. He defied it.
No, he defied us.
Another silence followed. This time it carried weight.
Disturbed his spirit was. Not in anger, but conviction.
Conviction is dangerous without structure. We've seen what rogue Jedi become.
Mace turned toward the center of the chamber, where no one stood, where Qui-Gon once had.
He thinks he knows the Force better than us. He was too far from the code. I warned you.
Warned us, yes. But blind we must not be. The Force stirs.
We don't know what that boy is. We don't know where Qui-Gon is taking him.
That's the danger. He's no longer bound by our structure. If he raises that boy wrong, if we were right to be cautious.
Perhaps we were wrong. We speak of faith in the Force, but maybe fear still lingers deeper than we care to admit.
No one answered him, because he was right. While the Jedi Council sat in silent dread over Qui-Gon's departure, the man they could no longer control drifted far from the core, following a whisper only he could hear. The ship was small, old. Its systems rattled beneath the hum of hyperspace. Anakin sat in the co-pilot seat, legs swinging, eyes fixed on the swirling stars outside. His fingers tapped nervously on the armrest. Qui-Gon hadn't spoken since they left Coruscant, not out of anger, but reverence. He sat with his hands folded in his lap, as if listening to something no one else could hear, as if hyperspace itself were speaking to him. Anakin shifted.
Master?
Qui-Gon opened his eyes. The boy rarely called him that, not yet, but it had slipped from his mouth naturally. Anakin hesitated.
Why didn't they want me?
Qui-Gon turned fully now. He looked at the boy, not with pity, but with weight.
Their hearts are full of fear. They saw what you might become, but not what the Force has chosen you to be.
Anakin's brow furrowed.
But they're Jedi. Aren't they supposed to know better?
Qui-Gon gave the faintest smile, not amused, but patient.
Even the wise forget how to listen, especially when they believe they already understand.
The boy looked down. His voice dropped to almost a whisper.
I'm sorry you got kicked out.
Qui-Gon didn't answer at first. He turned back to the viewport, eyes unfocused, listening again.
I wasn't cast out, I was called away.
Anakin blinked.
By who?
Qui-Gon placed a hand gently over the boys, not firm, just present.
By the Force, it speaks not in thunder, but in silence. And when it calls, we follow, even when others stay behind.
Anakin didn't speak, but for the first time since leaving the temple, his shoulders relaxed. Ahead, the nav system beeped. The planet was close. Dagobah, a world veiled in mist, uncharted, unclaimed. But Qui-Gon had seen it before, not in maps, but in visions. It had called to him in meditation, in stillness, not a voice with words, but a gravity of presence, a place soaked in the raw breath of the Force. He rose, walked toward the cockpit, and laid a hand on Anakin's shoulder.
Come, there is something here that will shape us both.
The temple halls were quiet as Obi-Wan stood before the council alone. His stance was straight, but his thoughts were loud.
This mission will be your final trial. Escort the Queen. Investigate the disturbance.
I find it unlikely that your former master's claim is true regarding the Sith.
Doubt in you, I sense.
Obi-Wan said nothing, not because he had no doubts, but because he feared they would show. The skies of Naboo were heavy with smoke. Federation tanks rolled across the hills. Gungan warriors scattered. Resistance folded street by street. Queen Amidala had not fled this time. She had stayed, hoping diplomacy might delay bloodshed. It hadn't. In the Theed Palace, Obi-Wan moved like a shadow through the corridors, alone, focused, angry. He hadn't spoken Qui-Gon's name aloud since he left, but it rang in his head like a war drum. He left me. For a child. For a fantasy. Obi-Wan had taken the mission to prove he didn't need him. He found Darth Maul in the hangar, a demon of silence and fury. Two blades hissed to life. Obi-Wan didn't wait. He ignited his own. Their clash echoed like thunder in a tune. Eventually, their duel made its way to the reactor room. Obi-Wan fought hard, but not centered. Every strike was fast, but unbalanced. Precise, but shallow. He fought not for peace, but to prove something. Maul saw it. A feint, a slip, a red blade. The saber pierced Obi-Wan's chest, clean, straight through. The young Jedi gasped, not in pain, but in disbelief, as Maul kicked him backward, sending him tumbling down the reactor shaft. He vanished into the darkness. Above, the Trade Federation's control ship remained untouched. There was no young Skywalker in a cockpit this time, no chance accident, no divine intervention. The droid army pressed forward, unchallenged. The Gungan shield collapsed. The Naboo resistance broke. Padme watched from a palace window as flames rose across the countryside. Theed was under siege. The treaty was signed at dusk, not because she believed in its terms, but because she had no army left to fight. While Naboo's plains still smoldered and the cries of the fallen had yet to fade, the Senate convened, not to condemn the injustice, but to argue the legality of its terms. In such a chamber, morality often gasped for air beneath stacks of protocol, but one man knew how to make it speak again. The Grand Convocation Chamber of the Republic Senate pulsed with unrest. Pod after pod of politicians floated in slow orbit, each one a world, a cause, a conflict in itself. Voices layered over voices until nothing could be heard, only the sound of chaos wrapped in civility. When Palpatine's platform glided forward, the storm quieted. He stood alone, hands folded, robe draped with perfect simplicity. He did not begin with a call for order. Instead, he allowed the silence to linger until the senators leaned in, as if the absence of noise itself demanded attention. Then, the holoscreens ignited. Images flickered into being, streets littered with bodies, the domed palaces of Theed blackened by fire. Children clung to lifeless parents. Gungan warriors torn apart by blaster fire. Droid tanks rolling over surrendering citizens. It was not war. It was occupation. And not even the treaty could hide that now. Palpatine's voice came soft at first, a measured calm meant to cut through the chamber like a scalpel through cloth. He spoke of legality, of treaties forced at blaster point. He reminded them that law is not the same as justice, that a contract written in fear cannot erase what the galaxy now saw with its own eyes. He never raised his voice. He didn't need to. With each word, he turned pain into purpose. Naboo, once dismissed as a distant conflict, became a mirror. He asked them what kind of republic allows this to happen. What kind of leadership hides behind protocol while the innocent burn? He did not demand power. That was the beauty of it. He offered himself instead as a servant, a man whose homeworld bled while the Senate argued over trade routes. By the time he finished, many senators were no longer watching the images. They were watching him. In private chambers, support began to shift. Votes moved without sound. Alliances bent towards sympathy or fear. Even Chancellor Valorum, watching the broadcast from behind a locked door, saw the writing on the wall. This was no longer about Naboo. It was about survival. And the people now believed Palpatine was the only one strong enough to offer it. The massacre had broken the Queen's resistance, but it had also crowned a new voice in the Republic. And the Senate, hungry for stability, applauded its own undoing. While the Senate chamber echoed with applause and Naboo wept beneath the weight of its treaty, deeper beneath the city world of Coruscant, a darker truth moved in silence. For the Sith, peace was always just the smoke that followed the flame, the works. Beneath the glimmering towers of the capital, beneath the Senate, beneath the Jedi Temple itself, the city decayed into steel skeletons and forgotten shadows. Factories long dead hissed steam through rusted lungs. Darkness clung to the walls like oil. Darth Maul stepped into it without hesitation. He moved through the hollow corridors with silent certainty. The crimson tattoos on his face glistened with sweat from battle, but his stride held no fatigue, only fire. Sidious was waiting. He stood at the edge of a broken hangar where wind howled in from the abyss. Pale light from distant city towers flickered like dying stars behind him. For a long moment, the master said nothing, then a small nod, subtle like an afterthought.
"You have done well,"
Palpatine finally said, voice as smooth as ever.
"Kenobi is dead."
Maul didn't speak. He bowed slightly, his head lowering but his eyes never leaving the shadows.
"But one test remains,"
the Sith Lord added, stepping back into the black. From the far side of the hangar, another figure emerged, cloaked, precise, regal. A curved hilt saber hung at his belt. They had never met, yet both knew what this was. Count Dooku ignited his weapon. Blue light bathed his face in sorrow and pride, the last color he would ever wield as a Jedi. Maul let the moment pass with no words. Then his own blade snapped to life, twin crimson flames that bathed the walls in rage. They came together like twin storms. Dooku was a master of Form 2, the most refined duelist in the galaxy. Every stroke, every pivot was precise, a dance born of nobility. But Maul was not a duelist. He was a weapon. Every strike came faster, heavier, driven by fury and a will to dominate. Where Dooku measured his breath, Maul snarled like a beast unchained. The red and blue blades cracked and hissed across the metal floor, painting scars of light in the darkness. Dooku faltered, not from lack of skill, but from imbalance. The darkness was new to him, and it pulled at his focus like a tide. His movements, once flawless, now had weight. His anger clouded his rhythm. Maul felt it. He pressed harder. A flurry of strikes, one high, one low, a spin. Dooku parried, but not the third. The blade tore across his chest. He stumbled back, breath ragged, the burn smoking through his tunic. Before he could recover, Maul reached out. The force crushed Dooku's body midair. With a twist of his fingers, Maul hurled him like scrap metal through the open hangar. The Count vanished into the abyss of Coruscant. No scream, no flare, just silence swallowed by the city's endless chasm. When Maul turned back, Sidious was gone. But his approval lingered like a chill in the wind. And that marks the end of Part 1. The Jedi are blind, the Republic is shifting, and a new Sith apprentice now stands unchallenged. If you want to see what happens next, how Qui-Gon and Anakin respond to a galaxy on fire, be sure to hit the like button. If this video hits 500 likes, part 2 will be on the way. The Force is watching. Let's keep building this story together.